We often talk about the mysteries that lurk just beyond the pages we explore each day on the internet. In this episode, we're going to take a look at a few natural phenomena that have given rise to folklore and legends across the world, enigmas that could happen right in your own backyard. Today, we dive into 3 earthly mysteries. This is Red Web. Excuse me, folks. Alfredo Diaz, you're with me here live, in person.
So is the rattling of the paper supposed to signify that, like...
That's the difference?
Hey, look at the, like, little bits and pieces we can give you now. Like, yeah, I've been talking about for a while how I just wanted to do this in person because, you know, I could look Trevor dead in the eyes when we talk about Teddy Fonda.
Right now.
He's doing it right now.
Right in my eyes.
And we can have Christian off in the wings just chuckling away, and then we can just pounce on him when he does so.
Giggle boy.
But here we are, you know, in person, filming this, and we're talking about what, like, earthly
we have some earthly mysteries that we're going to explore today. Yeah, totally. It's a little bit of a different episode. I know that was a rough intro. I'm Trevor Collins. That's Alfredo Diaz. Each week we explore a different unsolved mystery, and Alfredo reacts to it live.
rough like the earth.
Rough like the earth.
I love this already.
Brought it back around.
This already. Okay, step 1 of our series that does all the different elements in Avatar. Okay, I see you.
Yeah.
But more importantly, a step closer to the Atlantis one that I want.
Ooh, that's true. We need to get some waterly mysteries. Dip our toes into. I think we should absolutely do Atlantis here soon.
Terrifying.
Christian, what do you think? Yeah,
Atlantis?
Yeah,
we talked about it.
Yeah,
we talked about it. The idea is not off the table.
Okay,
in fact, it is.
I'm gonna just
listen to it. It is on the table.
I don't know that came through.
Hey, listen again. It is on the table. There it was. I missed the table the first time.
I'm going to extend my hand onto that table and just scoot that more towards the meteor part in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
But all right, here we go. It's a handful of different mysteries that are, I guess, based around Earth.
Yeah, we've done a couple compilation episodes before where we explore a bunch of different smaller stuff that might not constitute like a full episode. And this one's particularly interesting because these are natural phenomena that could happen to anybody. These are things that happen across the world. And what's also interesting about these in particular is that this might be our very first kind of official step, tiptoe, pinky in the water, in towards folklore and like legends and myths of that kind of caliber. You know, we've talked about cryptids, and I think that's as far as we've gotten into that direction. But coming out of some of these topics, we start to open the door towards folklore and things of that nature. And so, Task Force, I'd be curious. I don't know where to look. You guys aren't at the table, but I'd be curious to feel how you guys feel about that.
We talking like leprechauns and stuff?
Maybe.
Is that a cryptid or a folklore?
That's a very good question.
Where does that sit?
I'm not a cryptologist.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm looking
no
at you
idea.
because you're the man in the chair.
You're the man in the chair.
I love this. I love to look up dead in the eyes and just give me the answer.
Man in the chair, Googling leprechauns left and right.
Googled, is leprechaun a cryptid?
Wow. The technology this man has in this chair is crazy.
We're going to get you on so many lists.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But without further ado, why don't we dive into our first topic, which is that of the fairy rings and fairy circles. 2 different items. I thought they were the same. A lot of people, if you Google it, they will be synonymous, but they are actually different. Have you heard of these before?
No. I mean, a ring is a circle. Circle's a ring.
Yep.
No, a ring is...
Go ahead. Go back
okay,
to,
no.
We're going back to 5th grade for a hot minute.
Ring is a circle.
Christian, Google up some circles.
You got
a
it.
circle isn't necessarily a ring, like...
True.
But a ring is a circle.
Well...
No, because... yeah.
Let's move past it.
This was a mistake.
I like this. I like this energy. Listen.
This man took a sip of his drink and nearly killed himself.
Here's the thing.
There would be no mystery.
Good energy.
I took a sip of some energy drink, hit me right in the uvula, almost choked on it. I also realized I can drink anywhere I record this podcast. Doesn't have to be in person. I don't know. I'm like a kid trying to show off at a birthday party. I had too much cake.
Check this out. I could drink liquids. Like, couldn't you have done that at home too?
Shh, I'm not allowed. Okay, why don't we dive into the fairy rings and fairy circles? So we're going to talk about the fairy ring first, and then I'll define what the circle version is. But the most common fairy ring is when mushrooms inexplicably show up in an almost perfect circle, sometimes appearing overnight, very quickly. Now, this is something that has appeared all over the world, but you might find them in forests, and there's a lot of folklore around what they mean. But these rings can be upwards of 33 feet, which is a very specific measurement, but they can actually get over 10 meters wide and are able to move locations, kind of moving around in that perfect circle shape. And they also kind of stick around for years. They can be very old, they can also be very new, whatever. But there's one in France that is said to have a 2,000-foot wide diameter and have been around for 700 years.
It's just a big old, nearly perfect circle of mushrooms?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that just how they work?
Well, that's the mystery.
No, for sure.
But that's how they appear,
Yeah.
yes. Essentially like perfect circles with the mushrooms at the periphery of said circle. A ring of mushrooms.
Oh, not even a full circle. Wow. Okay. Yeah, no, that's where the ring part comes into play. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's weird.
It's very strange, especially if you see it pop up overnight. I think I've seen this in my own yard. I don't know if San Francisco doesn't really have yards.
Concrete jungle.
But it usually pops up if it's like super humid or super moist, and that will play into the explanation here. But
It's just a ring. It could be different sizes and
yeah, they can range. They can be very small, maybe a few feet, or
So
they
are
could
we
be
saying
huge.
that like this is the doing of like fairies?
Could be. Yeah. So let's talk about that mythological explanation
Okay.
there. So there's many stories that claim these rings are where fairies dance in a circle, and their presence, for whatever reason, you're making a face. I don't know why. Stick with me. The fairies are dancing around in a circle, and because of the magics within them or what have you, I'm not going to dive into the folklore necessarily, but
Right.
it's basically the footprint. They have been there, and thus the mushrooms have shown their presence.
See, again, I referred to the fact that we're in person.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're in person, you did catch my face. And my face was a face of confusion. It was less about the fairies and more of the fact that they only dance in circles.
Why are you guys looking at me for this?
I'm looking for a third opinion, a second opinion rather.
Yeah.
I speak when called upon and no more.
Well, you will be looked upon many a times.
Christian, that's you've sat down at a hot mic.
Oh,
What they
God.
call that in the
Oh,
industry.
no.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to just think.
Well, let's
that they only dance in a circle.
let's not complain about the fairies' form. We don't know what how they like to dance. When I go square dancing, which I do on many occasions, you know me, put on my boots, tip tap toe, and a square dance. You might see a square of mushrooms pop up if I've been dancing around in your lawn.
I'd get that checked out. I'll be real.
But
Okay.
coming back to the circles in their very specific shape, walking through a fairy circle is said to be very bad luck, at least in English and Celtic superstition. And any human who did would be cursed to dance to death with the fairies.
What
Is how it kind of goes.
the hell? I mean, that's very specific. I feel like you could just test it out.
Would you test it out though?
No, because I don't mess with that kind of stuff.
So is it so easy though?
Yeah, because come on, there's so many episodes of people are just like, I'm the one that killed the person, I'm the murderer. You know what I mean? I feel like you can get one of those people or those people adjacent to walk into said circle.
Just show up, fairies, at one of our prison yards, dance in a circle, and we'll just usher all the inmates through it, and then we'll
Shave
just
off
do
a year or two. Or
Oh my
something.
God! It's bad luck, not an illness.
But just test it. Run 100 people through it.
Run a double-blind study on these fairy rings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you, Task Force, Fredo, Christian, if you find yourself stumbling into one of these fairy rings and you have yourself some bad luck, there is a way to release yourself from it, and that would be to walk around the ring 9 times. Good luck if you stumble into the one in France that's 700 years old and 2,000 feet wide, because
Yeah, you'll be walking forever.
you're going to be walking some miles. And it can only be done under a full moon.
Oh, Jesus.
And don't lose count either, because if you happen to hit 9, you're like, you know what, let's do one more for safety. If you go to 10, that results in extremely bad luck. So now you've doubled down on the bad luck.
Oh, so you kind of have to take your phone, put it down. That's the starting point.
Right.
Here's the question. What if the ring of mushrooms is the size of an actual ring, like a wedding ring? How do you step around that?
You're going to have some baby bad luck. Or you're just going to pick it up and not even know. You could have so many so many sins attached to you for all those circles you
I feel like it'd be
trounced.
hard to take, like, I don't know, a grown adult and just trance around such a small circle. I saw Christian laughing. It chuckled there earlier. Is something funny about curses to you, Christian?
Can we take
No,
this seriously,
I'm
Christian?
just looking for fairy rings.
Okay.
I just imagine a small little fairy, like one of those ones in the 90s where you pulled the ripcord and it spins up into the air.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, that's how you get those tiny circles.
Small little tangent here, but one of the kind of like tails behind corgis is because, like, on their shoulders, their fur is lighter.
Oh, yeah?
And it's said that fairies rode corgis into battle.
That is an amazing, my God, I need visual confirmation of that.
There were the mounts.
Now I'm just imagining like corgis running into battle, with the metal helms and stuff, and like fairies going, woo!
Yep.
Oh man, that's a beautiful sight. All right, well, this is where I want to take a bit of a fork in the road and now kind of clarify between fairy rings and fairy circles, because this is where we're going to kind of set one aside and dive into the other. So fairy rings is what we've been talking about. These are circular formations of fungi, usually mushrooms popping up. Fairy circles, on the other hand, are arid grass formations where the grass forms a ring with nothing in the middle. So something like a dirt patch in the middle.
Whoa.
Sometimes this is a perfect circle of dirt, and sometimes this circle is surrounded by taller grass in the middle of a larger field. Sometimes it's just a ring of grass kind of by itself. Sometimes it's just a random perfect circle of dirt in an otherwise
and this
field of grass.
happens all over the world.
So the fairy rings, the
Happens
mushrooms,
all over the
that
world.
happens pretty commonly. Well, not commonly, but they happen,
But it can happen
all over the
anywhere.
world. Yes.
Okay. This is more specific.
The circles are particularly common in the Namib Desert, and they were believed for many years to only appear there until 2014, when they were also found in Australia. So they tend to be very arid climates, is where the circles are found. Now, coming back to the rings for just a second, a lot of people might be kind of sitting along with us and knowing that there is an answer to this that has come about, I don't know if in our lifetime, but I certainly found out somewhere in my teens or whatever, that this is like a mycelium growth underground. And as this mushroom, as this fungi, what are you laughing about? What's going on, Giggles?
I'm listening to all this information, and it's very intriguing when we're in person, and for some reason, it's probably because this is the first time we're doing this in person. I just took a glance down. You're in flip flops with socks, bro.
Dude, respect the drip. Okay, I came to party.
It looks coming. It's just
Dude,
flip-flops with socks.
I'm cruising in Comfort Central. Okay.
I lost my mind.
This is
down on one. This is motherfucker. Tell me all about
describe
all
me.
these fairy rings.
Take a look at this man in front of you and describe what you're seeing.
So you've got some flip flops that look durable, comfy.
Absolutely.
You've got some. You've got some green, white, and like navy blue socks on.
Not just any green.
Kind of
some
green.
neon green.
It is neon green. It is
Yeah.
neon green. Then you've got some very comfy Achievement Hunter sweats on.
Yeah. They're like that tie-dye.
Yeah, like the tie-dye
red
look.
and black.
It's just, your socks.
Got a lot of different layers on me right now.
Just the socks
A
and
lot
the
of different
flops.
looks. Socks and flops, dude. Ask your dad about this look.
That's a dad look
He would
for
know.
sure.
He would know. This is the look that a man has when he goes, I forgot we were recording in person.
Yep.
I ain't changing nothing.
I ain't changing. I'm going from comfy inside to comfy outside.
Comfort is rolling with me. That if there's one thing I picked up from this quarantine sort of situation, it's comfort.
That's a good thing to have. I brought shorts. And shoes.
This man's just got a normal outfit on, but he's got shorts.
Yeah, okay. But,
Okay, mycelium, all right?
The mushroom ring.
That's the explanation, is that the mycelium essentially is a network. I liken it to nerves in your body. It's or like veins. They're searching out through the dirt for new nourishment. And if it's in lush ground and it's finding nourishment everywhere, it's going to grow out at an even pace in all directions. Thus, you get a circle. So the fungus is under the ground. The mushrooms you see, mushrooms can grow very fast. And so that's why they can pop up overnight. And they grow in the circle because that's where, I guess, just the anatomy of the fungus, that's where they grow on the periphery of the mycelium.
So is the mycelium always just in a circle then?
Not always. Just I think in certain circumstances it can be
just blossom the circle of fungi.
Now, it's like common around the world in general, but yeah, when it comes to this specific formation, it's relatively rare, if that makes any sense.
Regarding why they're in circles, the large rings are created when the older mycelium in the center finally exhausts the soil nutrients and dies.
There it
and then
is.
after the central mycelium dies, the nutrients are returned to the soil and the grass will start growing again. And so just the mushrooms on the edge are the last ones to die in that formation.
Right.
The living edges will continue to grow outward in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Okay, so that's nature just doing its thing. I mean, I don't know what's weirder, like coming across mushroom that are grown in a perfect circle or just like a circle dirt patch in the grass.
I would say that one. So we know the fairy rings have an understood reason, right? The fungus, we can understand all of that.
Right.
It's rare, but we get it. But the fairy circles, on the other hand, while extremely similar, are still uncertain as to why they exist.
Right. So from like a scientific standpoint, that is weirder. But if I came across the two, not knowing any of this, I would see the fairy ring, the mushrooms, and go, that's weird. And then I'd see the fairy circle, the dirt patch in the circle, and go, someone put a bucket there and left it there.
Someone
for
put a
while.
bucket there. I mean, that's a big bucket. I'm gonna pull one up, unless you have.
Yeah, I've got a fairy circles example.
Holy hell.
And they tend to be, in groups, unlike the fairy rings, which are usually isolated incidents. What's that face? They're not blisters.
I don't.
They're not earth blisters.
I just don't like a lot of circles like that put together. Well, I forgot what phobia that is.
Trypophobia, I
Yep.
think. Yeah.
I don't even like the word.
I don't. Yeah, a lot of
Scares me.
circles together like that freaks me out. Didn't always, but I saw an article or something, and it was gross.
Don't describe it. I don't want to pick up any
I'm
phobias.
not gonna tell you.
Find the, so when you look up Task Force, when you look up fairy rings, you're going to find a wiki page that says the rings and the circles, they're all the same. But there is a specific wiki page for the fairy circles in particular. And I think in the title it specifies,
Oh, that's huge.
big bucket. So this one, now that we're showing up, so obviously we always post our photos to our Twitter page, the ones that we reference anyway, at RedWebPod. Give us a follow. But yeah, so there's various kinds of these fairy circles. These ones tend to be in clusters, but sometimes they're just like perfect dirt patches in the middle of an otherwise arid grassland. And they can survive for 30 to 60 years. So these are long living things.
Oh.
And they, per the Wikipedia page, which is why the numbers are so specific, they have diameters that have been measured between 7 and 49 feet, or 2 and 15 meters if you prefer.
Now, I'm assuming that you could still grow things in it if you wanted to.
You know what? That's a really good
Like,
question.
could you? Is like the soil just tainted at that point? Because that's a very long time.
Yeah, for just like a perfect circle of dirt
Yeah.
for nothing to be growing in there. I mean, that's the challenge, is that the environment that these tend to show up in are already not very hospitable for plant
Right.
life. And so a lot of people think that that is like the key behind why these form. Now, I'm sure that you could dig a bunch of different holes, one or a couple being in the middle of this circle, some being outside of the circle, plant a bunch of different fruit or trees or whatever, and I'm sure they would all struggle just as well. But
Yeah.
but that's a really good question that I don't know if I have the answer to that. If the soil in particular is different inside versus out. I mean, they're still studying this phenomenon, but that could very well be a part of the answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all weird in general, but I'd chalk it up to nature being nature. It's just coming across something like that, I'd be very confused.
Yeah.
I would think that someone had did that on purpose.
It does look so intentional.
Yeah.
Just because, like, yeah, if I teleported somewhere in the world and I saw that, I'd be like, this is a strange thing, but
Yeah.
like it's like a natural monument.
Yeah, someone took the time to do this. Weird. Okay.
Yeah, especially now this doesn't directly answer, but it is interesting. The Himba people they actually use and protect these circles because for agricultural purposes, because they support the grass in a land that otherwise, like I mentioned, plants are very uncommon here. And so by protecting this, they at least have some greenery which can support an ecosystem. And so if they're a farmer or, like I said, working with agriculture in any way, it's actually beneficial. But that leads us to the theory section that I want to try to dive into some of the attempted solutions or answers as to what these circles are all about. Obviously, starting with the myths and the supernatural, there are myths from the Himba people that these circles are footprints of the gods, that this is where the gods have shown their presence on this earth, and it has scarred the earth in some way to basically be like, they're here, they've been here. But others believe that these could be crop circles in some way, whether they're prank versions, right, caused by people,
Yeah.
or caused by aliens. Maybe an alien craft came down, beamed some cow up in that spot.
Well, like the whole God theory, I think that's very interesting to me because, I don't know, you just like to think that there's like a higher power or being or something like that, right? But what else do you think? Are they tiny gods? Because why did they stop in like a circle? If that's like one of the bigger circles, don't laugh at me.
Maybe
if that's one of the bigger circles, like I feel like they're restricting themselves, and as gods, why would they do that? Unless they're really tiny gods. And so that big circle is like huge.
I'm just thinking now, a bunch of gods with perfectly circular feet.
But then where are all the other little holes?
I don't know. Maybe they I flew too low and I got to kick off this earth again so I can keep floating. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
In terms of aliens,
you can see that.
Yeah. I mean, no, what if the alien came down and then obviously there's some form of radiation or chemicals from their planet, home world, and that taints it. But again, why just that specific circle? Why does a spacecraft always have to be a circle?
It's just the perfect craft, you know?
Yeah. They perfected spaceflight. It's in a circle.
Maybe they came from a planet far, far away with some of Scott's turf builder, you know? They just dropped off a perfect ring, a couple rings of grass, you know? This will help out the people, you know?
Random pull.
I don't know. Some grass fertilizer from another place.
Okay, gods and aliens.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I knew that was coming. Sure.
Well, I mean, that's what I find so interesting about some of the folklore is that the answers are obviously like crafted out of not knowing. But I just find folklore in general, this is like a more shallow piece of folklore, but I just find folklore and ancient religion to be very, very fascinating. So this is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine to explore these topics. But
yeah, my fascination with that is always just that kind of thought of, what if what they're saying or the folklore is an exaggeration of something that actually is, right? Where it might not be as supernatural, but it's maybe this small part of their journey that they've come across that is in some way supernatural or in some way, extraterrestrial.
Like maybe a game of telephone or Gartic phone where it started as something real.
Exactly.
Like I saw this thing that I could kind of explain, and then it kind of, as it got to our generation over the years, that's what I love so much about history. As a kid, history couldn't have been more boring. But now as an adult, I got nothing else going on. I'm like, history, man. But yeah, so that's really interesting. I thought that was a nice little kind of theory to explore. But moving on to the next theory, some people believe that these circles are caused by sand termites burrowing into the ground and causing the plants to die. This could be whether it's because they're eating out the roots of the grass, therefore causing them to die and burn out in the sun, or maybe they're eating the plants themselves. And so, therefore, these circles could literally just be the size of their colonies, and when they stop expanding outward, the grass is totally fine. And maybe doing that kind of pushes some of the nutrients in the ground out towards outwards to the perimeter, so that some of the grasses there can end up being a little taller, and that's where you get that distinct look.
See, for me, something like that is a theory that we could just test, So I'm sure there's like people that are looking into this and studying this. I just kind of question why they wouldn't just test that and then scratch that off.
Yeah.
If it doesn't apply. But that makes sense. Yeah.
It definitely makes sense.
I knew there'd be some type of bug that
some
would
sort
come
of
into
bug
play
centric
in the theories. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they're still exploring it, and so they probably haven't ruled it out, but they have found some that didn't have termites underneath the circles. And so the question still remains, okay, well, some can obviously appear without these termites. Are there multiple causes, or can we entirely rule out the termites? But yeah, you're right. That can absolutely be tested. Another theory to talk about is carbon monoxide. There's not a whole lot of evidence for this one, but simply enough, this theory purports that carbon monoxide underground is simply killing the plants across a wider field, because maybe there's some sort of source of carbon monoxide underground, and it's coming up through spots, and it's just killing plants in a certain area. But again, not a whole lot of evidence for that, just a theory. And another one, before we go to the strongest theory, another one that doesn't really have a whole lot of evidence kind of comes back to the idea of fungus and microbes, that perhaps, much like the fairy rings, there are spots of fungi around that maybe grow in that circular pattern, and they are stealing nutrients or in some way killing the grass that's around there. and therefore the only place for the grass to grow is just on the periphery of that fungus or those microbes. But again, not a whole lot of conclusive evidence there, but it does lead us nicely into the idea of plant competition, which is still a very broad strokes theory, but it definitely gets probably the closest that we have to an answer right now, based on the years of observing these circles and the coming and going of them and how they might form. And a lot of those observations were done by ecologist Dr. Stephen Getson, who led a study published in the Journal of Ecology in 2020, and he was closely monitoring these rings, these circles, I should say, in Australia. They found that when there was heavy rainfalls onto the sand, that it actually created a layer of clay over the sand and over the soil, which would kind of make a barrier for any plants that would try to grow there. And to compound that theory, after the rainfall, with that kind of harder soil in that shape, whatever shape it might be, the rain will hit that, roll off to the edges, and thereby feed the plants on the edge of that shape.
Right.
Now, for it to be in a perfect circle is very interesting, to create clay just in these circular shapes. But
yeah, as we go down the list of theories, they become more realistic in my mind.
yeah,
But none of them really explain the shape, how they're
Yeah.
always in a circle. I mean, obviously this is a mystery, hence why we're talking about it. But yeah, none of that like comes into play as to why it's a circle.
it could be, and this is just my extrapolating of this theory, but let's just pretend it made like a square shape when it made this clay, a relatively large patch of area, or just a random shape. It could be that when the rain then falls back onto that, it rolls off, and maybe over time it ends up eroding that shape downward. And so it becomes, the blob slowly gets rounded off into a circle.
Yeah.
But then that would mean that you would see plenty of these circles next to plenty of these blobs,
Exactly.
you know?
You'd at some point see non-circles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the circles is the mystery part of it.
To me, that's where the piece of plant competition comes into play, because plants grow very geometrically. And if they're just blindly reaching out uniformly to look for nutrients,
Right.
and there was some sort of competing species in play, whether it be the microbes, fungus, or other grasses, this idea is what could create the circular pattern, much like the fairy rings with the mycelium. But the intricate play therein is still yet to be completely explained and completely understood.
Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting if, you took a handful of scientists and had them try to replicate this with the different theories.
Yeah.
I think it would be very interesting to see.
So this is actually, now that you say that, this is going to be a really fun episode for you, because
Okay.
you like the practical, you like physical evidence,
Yeah.
you like the scientific method, and at least this topic right here can absolutely be explored very heavily
Yeah.
with the scientific
I thought you
method.
were going to say because I like rolling around in dirt or something.
And you love that dirt, dude. You rolling around in it. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it,
Throw
but you
something
put it out
random.
there.
But yes, I'm a fan of the tangible.
So that is the fairy rings, the fairy circles, very interesting, but that's just our first step into the foray of these earthly mysteries. As we go through this episode, I think they're going to get a little bit more intriguing, a little bit less known, less explicable. But this next one I find very interesting, and this is one of the first ones, when we conceived this show, that Christian and I had talked about. And it's going to require some work on the part of the task force. You guys listening, if you want to experience this particular mystery yourself, you can, by way of many recordings online. But without further ado, why don't we let's just dive in.
Okay.
So across the internet, videos can be found depicting what many have described as the trumpets of the apocalypse. These videos are from all over the world, and it's unclear if it's just a viral hoax or there's something more to it. These videos started going viral in the 2010s. Particularly, there's a compilation video from 2015 that really set this off. And so this is a relatively recent mystery. But yeah, it's this sky trumpet is what they're called. And we have some videos that we can show Fredo here, but we'll link some on our Twitter. And if we can, with copyright issues excluding, we'll try to post one of these videos on our Twitter as well, so you can go check one of them out. But otherwise, just kind of search online for sky trumpets and you'll see what we're talking about.
Bro, what the hell is that? It's got different tones and everything.
Yeah, it's wild. So for those of you who want to know what we're looking at right now, that most of these videos are just someone looking up at the sky, usually just some wide open landscape, and then this sound comes in. And it's not always the same, too. You have what we just showed you, which is this kind of whirring, humming noise.
Yeah.
There are...
It was very weird.
With like a woo in the background or whatever.
Yeah, I was very focused on the sky there, but I mean, were there any, like, mountains in the background?
I think there was some mountains in the background of that one.
All right, maybe some air cutting through. I'm just trying to explain. That was weird. That was really weird. It was very one of those like big old sci-fi movies that you'd have like Tom Cruise and the world is ending. I mean, there's even a dog. He's like, come here.
He's like, no, bring the dog.
It's just like seconds before things start getting really weird and the sky changes colors. Like it's literally that kind of like moment.
Yeah. It's funny too. He got his dog to make sure it was safe. There's a kid running about way over there. Don't know if it's his kid, but he's got his priorities straight.
Yeah,
keep the dog safe.
Save the kid.
But yeah, they tend to sound like off-key trumpets or whale calls. Some of them, a lot of them sound like rusty swings, but like big, like very enormous, rusty scraping noises. One of them I heard sounded almost like Godzilla. The sound that he makes, one of his distinct roars from the OG movies.
Yep, I have it right in my head. I won't dare try it. But was that kid freaking out?
No, they were just running around.
The kid just seemed like he was just moseying along.
Yeah. That's worth paying attention to as well. Because,
because if it's a hoax, then haha. I mean, I'm sure the people that don't believe in it, that believe it's a hoax, it's like, haha, why wouldn't that kid freak out too?
Right. Why weren't they listening instead of just standing
looking
at the ground?
up and interacting?
But because of the sound, obviously they've been nicknamed the Sky Trumpets. A lot of the videos that are recorded of this tend to be aimed up at the sky, which means if you're there experiencing this, whatever it is, it's probably emanating, because it's hard to tell in a video where it's emanating from, but there are videos of people in forests. They often tend to be in mountainous forested areas, which I think is also something worth noting.
I mean, I'll be honest. This is probably after, 50 odd episodes that we've done, the alien theory would fit the most with this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. That sounds like some weird extraterrestrial stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, there's a website. If you want to go there, Task Force, proceed with caution, do your scans and all that. Don't download anything. Strangesounds.org. And they catalog and compare all these different Sky Trumpet videos going as far back as 2008. I think it was in 2020, there was a resurgence of these videos. They went viral again. And when things go viral like that, it makes me think that it's either a real event that happened and a lot of people witnessed it and recorded it, or on the other hand, it became a very popular topic. And so a lot of people started looking for this.
A lot of people are trying to, I mean, especially now in 2020 where everyone's podcasting, everyone's a content creator, right? It's just like everyone's trying to hop on any and every trend. Mm-hmm. And so if this is trending, that's a thing.
Especially in 2020. We're all locked down.
Part of this podcast for too long. Also, maybe it's the government testing some kind of weapon. That would probably be in the theories. Now, do I subscribe to aliens or government testing things in a facility? No. I'm not.
But you're gonna.
But
when I get there.
No. I think it's the wind. I'm going to say it's the wind.
Let me pose this question.
Okay.
What if we controlled the wind? Hey, pipe down.
Bro, it's like a cheesy line, and like I don't know, like the last Airbender reboot, bro.
Like in
what
2020,
if we controlled the wind? What if we controlled Aang?
It'd be like one of those lines from like 2012, when Jake Gyllenhaal's like, "What if we control?" Oh wait, what is he in? He's in Day After Tomorrow. Anyway. We'll come back to it. We'll get around there.
Yeah, I think the theories are going to be really fun with this. There's a lot of like stuff that I say it's terrifying, but I don't know, something about that is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I believe in global warming. I think it's a thing. I feel like my mind realistically, if I was just walking about and I heard something like that, I'd be like, oh no, some kind of like giant iceberg melted off and it's thrown everything off axis, and this is bad.
Right. Got to get to the core of the planet, kick it back up again. Yeah, that's the thing, dude. Like that's why I wanted to do an Earthly Mystery centric episode. But this is something that if you're walking around, again, you can experience this anywhere on Earth. These videos come in from all over the place. And yeah, if I experienced that, I don't know what I would feel, because there's still so much of this earth that we are still figuring out. Whether it's the ocean and exploring the bottom of it, which is essentially space, if it's geographic phenomenon that we'll kind of get into a little bit in the theories that we just don't know about. This is a huge living rock. There's a lot going on.
Yep.
And we are just tiny specks of dust on it.
Oh, yeah.
So whatever thing can make a sound like this is immediately terrifying.
I'd have was it Robert Neville? I Am Legend reaction at the sky of like, no, sky, no.
And what if it stopped right then?
Okay. Freak me out, dude. Freak me out.
The sky caller.
Flip side of that, if like some kind of kaiju came out of the water, I'd be like, dope.
I'd be like, that's really cool. I need to call my mom.
Ooh, all right.
But that's pretty much it. That is the mystery. And because these videos cropped up all over the world and there seems to be no obvious explanation describing what's going on, people online started to freak out, and that's why it really went viral.
Has there been any type of like talk about this before like 2010?
Not really. I mean, maybe, Christian, I don't know if we can find anything. I mean, this goes back as far as 2008. Is really when it's been paid attention to, and it only got attention in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, because I feel like it's a part of that age where like Windows Movie Maker is a thing that everyone can kind of like futz around with. Mm-hmm. So it'd be, I don't know, I was just very curious to see if like someone in, I don't know, 1960,
right?
You know what I mean? Like talked about this and wrote about it or anything like that. But things got to start somewhere.
Right. I suppose that's true, but with how old and relatively consistent the Earth is, minus like things like climate change, you would expect, if this is just some normal earthly phenomenon, that someone anytime in our history, documented or otherwise, would have talked about this.
Yeah.
But I guess not.
That's
Maybe not captured on video because
but that's what I was saying. Anywhere. Just like written it down somewhere, had it in their journal or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
to necessarily be video based.
That's what makes me wonder, because like the next thing I had in my notes was like these people online that were panicking about this. They're theorizing that it could be anything like the trumpets that are beckoning the apocalypse, that it's the trumpet of Archangel Gabriel, that it's the arrival of aliens or something. And honestly, now you got me thinking, like, maybe when we look back, if this was a natural phenomenon, it was a part of these stories. Maybe it's why we have this concept of the trumpets of the apocalypse. Maybe it's why we have some of these things in our religions and in our stories.
True, because they came across this like sound in the sky and then wrote about it, and that got passed down to storytellers, and they gave life to it and made it bigger than anything that they could imagine.
Let's just attribute that to our Zeus or whatever, right? It's very interesting, but yeah, the fact that it came up recently is definitely another thing that makes me lean towards certain theories more than others. But ultimately, there's no scientifically agreed upon answer. So with that said, let's dive into some of those theories, some of which you nailed in your gut feelings.
I knew it.
I'm going to talk about two of those that don't have a whole lot to talk about. They're just straightforward theories, and then we'll go into some of the ones that have some more meat and taters. The first one being that this is earthquakes that whoever's filming these videos can't feel at the time. That these earthquakes are so violent somewhere that they're creating this turbulent sound in the atmosphere, or that it's just the sound of the earth grinding against itself. But for some reason, whoever's filming it can't feel it.
But if a ton of these have come up, and if that's the theory, I mean, I know we're tracking earthquakes all around constantly.
You would see some sort of...
Right, there'd be some correlation there, right? Because at this point, you could timestamp these videos.
Right. Where were you? When were you?
Yeah,
let's look at seismographs.
And then, talk to geologists or whatnot and check the seismographs, see if there was something happening.
Right.
I feel like you kind of get down to the bottom of that.
Yeah. In a less natural but very, very similar vein, there's another theory that says perhaps that these are just videos, involves construction or large automotives like trains, just some large mobile, or even a boat scraping into a dock, just something that the viewer of the video can't see, whether it's behind the camera or just something out of eyesight, because these, like I said, tend to be in like hill country. They tend to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, out in the hillsides. Like every video I've seen, at least up till this point, tend to be somebody with a very large scenic view of just whatever.
They're very, they vary a lot, because I've seen some that are in landscapes you're talking about, but then there are some that are in like downtown cityscapes from apartment balconies.
Interesting.
Yeah, just someone walking out with their socks and flops.
Socks and flops.
Holy hell! What is happening? What's that noise?
Whoa, I'm so comfortable, but what is that? At least I'll die comfortable. That's what they'd be thinking.
See, the reason why I could kind of subscribe to that is because of the fact that the noises vary so much. Mm-hmm. So it could be a train and how it echoes off of the mountains and the trees, or in some cases, I guess, skyscrapers, whatnot.
Yo, yeah, what if it's just a train applying the e-brake in some valley that you can't see? And so that's the grinding noise that you're not hearing maybe in the video we showed you, but in some of them, because a deer's on the tracks or something.
I guess, like, what is, like, the perfect storm for that to travel so far, right? I mean, it'd have to do with the wind probably as well, but, I mean, what does that look like where it'd have to be perfectly aligned for a train to send that audio frequency down, like, I don't know, tens of hundreds of miles?
Well, I mean, if a man in lederhosen can yodel into the Swiss Alps and we can hear that for miles, I think a train with the e-brakes can.
Yeah, no, that's true. I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean, that theory isn't so far.
Did I say lederhosen or did I say something else?
Lederhosen.
Okay.
Yeah, I said lederhosen.
I want to make sure I get that right.
Yeah, no, it isn't as far-fetched because the sounds vary so much, or so I'm being told, right?
Right.
And so it could be a boat scraping at one point, or I don't know, a train.
Also, regarding what you were asking about, have there been any instances before whatever year we were discussing?
Yes.
These occurrences, events, whatever you want to call them, have had different names. Some people call them skyquakes, and then depending on the area it occurred, there are a ton of different names. But it looks like there, at least just based on what I'm reading right now, there have been these sounds or instances reported dating back to the 1800s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right.
So I guess they didn't really become common knowledge until maybe the internet and a couple of videos actually
more
captured
documented
it.
And
yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
I mean, because like if you don't have, I don't know, video or audible proof, what I heard some trumpet kind of noise in the sky. Like, how do you even take that person seriously at that point?
Or how can you prepare for that? Like decades ago, if you thought you saw like a UFO or something you couldn't identify in the air, you might be like, honey, go get the camera. And then you crank that thing to life. But yeah, if this is just a short audio burst and this is pre-cell phones in everyone's pockets, because we're talking 2008, right?
Yep.
Before then, cell phones with capable video, not super common.
Yeah, not everyone has that capability.
So you're not like ready to, it wasn't an instinct.
See, it's something like this that's going to be a mystery, God, forever. Because how do you even study that, right?
Yeah, how do you identify the origin and all that?
There's just no way to study that. You don't know when. You don't know where. You kind of have some idea. I don't know because they happen in cities and stuff apparently too. So there's just no way to study that.
It's going to have to be something where they have, much like the ocean, just has microphones around.
Right.
It's just going to have to be something like that where
comes
you
across some
luckily
existing like station or set of devices.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I don't know, man. Like, what makes that kind of noise?
What if it was a giant flying harmonica?
This man's in too deep. We got to pull him out.
Yeah, no, it definitely, and we'll keep going back to the theories here in a second, but like it's definitely in my mind a wind meeting something. It's definitely wind vibrating something, whether it be trees or whistling, like almost like a natural whistle. If it happens to hit a large rock formation that just has like a sharper edge that splits the wind, it's got to be something like that.
That's where that's at in my mind, and I don't know. For me, I kind of really like place my mind there because I don't know. Like growing up, I was I'd walk over to Japantown in San Francisco. And so when I, the route that I would take, there, be slightly uphill, but there'd be these apartment buildings. They weren't like super tall, but there were apartment buildings. So they had like 10 floors to them or whatnot. And walking through there on a windy day, like the wind just funneled through to the point where it would, I'd have to kind of like pay attention at, the pace I was walking, because I get knocked on my ass if I didn't, because the wind was so strong. So what's to say, like, you don't take something like that and then, throw it through a mountain pass or something like that to get those weird type of noises.
I mean, you get the whistles in like an old doorway or window. I mean, like wind is crazy. Wind can be very powerful.
Yeah, the way wind is funneled through could be powerful and can make all kinds of noises.
100%.
So that's where my mind is at.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Gap in the Mysteries, where I talk directly to you, the audience, the lovely ones at home, the task force. I am unfortunately home right now while I do this, but I'm very excited that our episodes are being recorded in person for the first time in the entire run of this podcast. This is the first episode we've done in person, so I'm so excited because I feel like the energy is off the chain hook, as they say on Key and Peele. But yeah, no, I'm super stoked to be in person because it's just a little bit easier to look across the table, see all your coworkers, and be able to talk to them about some mysteries. You know what? I want to look across the table at you right now and talk about some of our fine sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Life is full of stressors. Everyone's got them. Whether it's job stuff, interpersonal dynamics, or even juggling responsibilities, everyone can use a chance to unload. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. I know I never use my camera because no one needs to see these socks and flops during my sesh, okay? It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in just under 48 hours. So that's super fast. If you want to get in there, you can do it right away. Unload the stressors and get some feedback, unbiased feedback from professionals. You'd be pretty surprised at what you might gain from it. Again, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy, and Red Web listeners, Task Force, that's you. You can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/redweb. That's BetterHelp.com/redweb. And just in case, REDWEB. I never spell that one out, but I feel like I should sometimes. This podcast is also sponsored by Babbel. Babbel brings bite-sized language lessons with practical, real-world vocabulary. I was able to use Babbel and refresh some of the French that I used to speak back in my younger years. I took French in school and a little bit of Spanish, and so now I'm like, you know what? If I need to brush that off or je brousse that off, I can practice my French now. Why would I practice French over something a little bit more utilitarian like Spanish? Because I'm in Texas? Well, because I want to. Also because my girlfriend knows French, and it's just a thing, man. Babbel lets you choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish and French, and even ones like Russian and Indonesian. Other language learning programs use AI for their lesson plans, but Babbel's lessons were created by over 100 language experts, so you know you're going to get it right. And their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you work on your pronunciation, so not only will you have the right words, but you'll be able to say them right too. Right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. That's 6 months, half a year of language learning for the price of 3 months. Just go to Babbel.com and use promo code REDWEB to let them know we sent you. Let them know that you want to learn some languages. And it's spelled BABBEL.com using code REDWEB. Babbel, language for life. And with that said, let's dive right back into the mysteries. But yeah, I'd be remiss if we didn't dive into this particular theory, in that it's very possible that this is just a hoax, that these are all hoaxes, that this was maybe started as a prank or started in the same vein as creepypasta, which is to be taken at face value, but starts as just fiction, as a piece of fun lore to create to establish fear, or just to like a horror film has a purpose of just sharing fear.
So that's kind of like where my mind rested heavily on, was that theory of okay, it's just a hoax. It's popped up at around 2010, and then everyone from at that point on, right, the whole theory of just everyone's chasing the clicks or like whatever's trending.
Right.
I mean, but Christian did say it was mentioned way back when.
Right.
But, oh, God. Okay, who's to say that someone didn't come across that and then said to themselves, oh, I'm going to bring this like whole theory or mystery or whatever into the 21st century.
Right.
And then from there, it, spun into what we have today.
Yeah.
Tons of sightings and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It seems to be coming around at the time where the internet's really taken off, when more and more people are starting to make videos. And I think the fact that everyone being home, like you mentioned, everyone becoming content creators in the last year alone, this resurgence at going viral again in 2020 could be a byproduct of that. And maybe that is like, when you look back in the past, in the 1800s, maybe that was just a version of that then, and that this is just a new version of it now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help when there was one popular video came out to be a hoax. The person who filmed it said that they simply pointed their phone at the sky and they took the audio from somebody else's video. That said, you go to that person's video, it's a couple of guys in the woods listening to what sounds like a plane, but then it evolves into this really loud trumpety sound. And so the original video might not be explained. It's really hard to say. It's kind of like a boy who cried wolf situation. Some are most definitely hoaxes. Some might be hoaxes that just aren't claiming it. I don't know. But otherwise, they're very easy to create. You just take a ship rubbing against a dock by accident, just take that sound, take Godzilla, apply it to another video, and you get a very Silent Hill-esque moment where you're just seeing a very stoic and calm
take it into
environment.
Adobe Suite and just change the pitches and stretch them out. Like, a
calm scene with a very unsettling sound that's gotta be a genre, right? Like, it's spooky.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's easily, I don't know, you could easily produce something like that, but if I was just out camping and I heard it, boy, that ain't no hoax. That's something. But I don't know. I would chalk it up to the wind doing weird things.
Absolutely. There's another theory in here that I have a lot of information on, but I think I'm going to tap into it briefly.
Okay.
And it relates the sky trumpets to this worldwide hum that some people hear. I don't want to dive into it too much because some think of these as two separate phenomenon. But very briefly, this hum sound has been reported by a lot of people across the world. In fact, there's a town in New Mexico named Taos, and 2% of the population of that city or that town claim to hear this hum in the air. Many of them are middle-aged. And the reason why I want to be brief on this one is because there's no recordings of this supposed hum. Anyone who hears the hum can hear it while someone next to them doesn't hear it. And so I don't think that there is a relationship between these two phenomenon. I think that the hum might be more something like tinnitus, where I can hear this high-pitched like sound when it's dead quiet, where you wouldn't, and and that would explain why I couldn't capture it on video. Yeah,
I mean, that would be hard to capture. But then also there's devices like that you could pick up off of Amazon where like it's a pitch where only dogs can hear. Right. But it's like only dogs and like young children can hear, right? Because as you get older, like your hearing deteriorates. Right. And so it's very gradual and slow at its pace. So it's not something that's so sudden majority of the time, but it's definitely there. Yeah. I mean, the difference here is that the people that can hear the hum can't capture it, whereas the people that hear the sky trumpets can. Yeah. And I think that's an important distinction because we have a very limited range for seeing, hearing, and exploring the world via sensation. We have very primitive tools, whereas the entire range of light frequencies vastly exceeds what we can see. And I'm sure it's the same with hearing. But the reason I still wanted to mention this, though, is because there was a case in Sausalito, California, where there was a supposed hum, but it did have an origin, and it was actually caused by the fish in the water mating. And I don't know how ravenous they were getting during their, their coital moments. How hard are these fish slapping ass that's making noise like that, slapping fin, dude. But to create a hum that people could perceive in the town over, basically, I just wanted to talk about this because there was a natural occurrence that otherwise we would have been like totally caught off guard by creating this hum locally. And so maybe there's something like that, a natural phenomenon creating this trumpet that we just haven't discovered yet. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think it's something that's just kind of naturally happening. That's where my mind would like to go.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to think it's something crazy and world ending. But if something as simple as the wind at a certain speed and just shaving, just skating off the drums of love in the water and then just flowing down the mountain pass over to this village, yeah, right. If something is simple, I mean, it's not simple in theory when you really look at it, but it's just like, that's just wind and animals.
I mean, my mind wants to go nature as well, but I think what can come with that can still be very scary because nature's real. And nature has tons of real stuff that we don't know anything about.
Atlantis.
I mean, that's not scary at all, though. That's magic. That's magical. Just daydreaming now.
Not Disneyland.
Must be this tall to discover. But nature can be scary, and that kind of leads into this next theory. Much like earthquakes, if this sound is generated by earthquakes in some way, that would be terrifying because it just shows how small we are in this universe. But so does the fact that this could be, as some people theorize, the delayed sonic boom of a meteor entering the atmosphere. Or maybe, a lot of meteors enter the atmosphere and burn up before they can ever hit the ground.
Yep.
And this could be, for any reason, one of those burning up in the atmosphere. Especially if they have craters on them, they could... Like a flute is just you're blowing across a hole, and then you're hitting a bunch of valves to change the pitch. If a meteor comes in and it's cavernous and it has a bunch of these holes in it, whistling through the atmosphere, I can picture that.
See, the whole meteor theory kind of just it lends to my overall thought of it's something natural, right? It's not anything man-made or just something natural that's happening with nature. Also, didn't even think about the whole meteor thing. This is the kind of I don't know, just there could be 10 other things that occasionally happen naturally that could cause this that I'm just not
or that you
about.
Never knew about,
right? If you're asking me to sit here and think of a handful of things, it'd take me a second to get to meteor. I would have never thought of fish banging, right? And there's probably a handful of other things like that, right? That one that deals with the trees and the mountains, or how a plane is moving in a certain direction against the wind, 10 miles down, etc.
Just perfect conditions to create a sound, right?
Yeah, there's probably 10 different perfect condition theories that make complete sense.
A cave on a mountainside in a valley that just creates another way of whistling. I don't know. But yeah, this particular theory is substantiated by scientist David Hill, who reports that it's possible to hear a meteor without having the visual signs of a meteor. And that just kind of keeps me thinking, this is one of those things I'd sit on my porch as an old man sipping on coffee going whoa. Because something to be that loud, again, it just shrinks me. It just makes me feel so I am just a blip on the radar of this universe. For something to be able to create such a naturally loud noise. I think even was it Krakatoa? Was this ancient volcanic explosion. And it was purported to be so loud that the sound echoed around the planet several times. You would just hear the explosion waft over you.
Absolutely insane.
But it was before, it was ancient.
Right.
It was prehistoric essentially. And so that kind of stuff just blows my mind. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because if it is something that is so vast and enormous to be able to create that type of sound and noise that's heard, what else do you do but just kind of let it happen?
Right.
You know what I mean?
You go thumbs up. I hope it doesn't hurt me.
Yeah.
And then you move on.
I hope it doesn't hurt me. I hope it's not, if it's something that's doing it, I hope it's not coming my way.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing you can do.
Otherwise, you just go it's like
you're
when
just so insignificant at that point.
It's news today, the sun's about to engulf the planet in the next 8 minutes. You go, welp.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yep.
But yeah, okay, let's talk about the last theory. And you kind of tapped into this one, and this is why I talked about controlling the wind. There are a lot of conspiracy theories that attach sky trumpets to HAARP. HAARP being a high-frequency active auroral research program that started back in 1993. And many people say that the sky trumpets are actually a symptom of HAARP weapons. HARP weapons are definitely conspiracy theories because HARP was a real thing that studied the ionosphere using high-frequency transmitters with the intention to improve radio communications and navigation. So it was a real thing. But the conspiracy theory comes in to say, well, HARP was actually used to manipulate the weather and control the weather. They developed weapons with this to create some sort of like high-intensity lightning blast in a city.
Movies.
And yeah, and that this is just a symptom of this technology, which is really interesting. But I don't know what else to say about it. You know,
I mean, if we're gonna go back to I don't know if it was a hit, but the blockbuster movie, The Core, right?
Absolutely.
They discovered that they stalled the Earth's core because it wasn't natural. Right, it was a weapon that they used that was, I don't know, like triggering through the Earth.
Yeah, they had to nuke it. Right?
Yeah. That it's a weapon that they use that kind of like rattled through the earth, and they were testing it. And then I remember halfway through they were just like, okay, what if we use the weapon again? It stalled the earth. What if it kickstarts it again? And they're like,
was it man that stalled the earth, or was it natural?
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
The scientists find out that it's like the government ended up using a weapon that stalled the earth, and then they were just like, what if we just kickstart it up again?
Every
kick
time
it back on.
Every time I watch this movie, it was me stumbling onto it on the Sci-Fi Channel midway through.
It's awesome.
It's a really cool movie that explores like what could be in the center of the earth, like giant diamonds and stuff.
And how you would journey through it.
Yeah.
Like the different layers and everything
that part I love. I love
the pressure. And,
the heat and everything.
Yeah, it was really cool. But I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately...
What, Christian? What are you laughing? You think the government... No, look, all right, I'm the kind of person that's not all about these crazy theories and conspiracies and whatnot, but you know the government is like testing stuff somewhere, right?
Oh, it's a valid theory.
You know they're trying to, I don't know, some type of invisibility cloak, or I'm sure they're messing with anything and everything possible.
Yeah. It was just the way you said it. You went on this long tangent talking about the core, and you just went, that makes sense.
you made us think that you were like, that's wild, but you're like,
that's
no,
insane.
I agree,
but okay. It's weirdly enough not insane to me to think that there might have been this actual, was it HARP or something like that?
HAARP.
Yeah, where they were trying to test things for like radio stuff, and it just set off some imbalance, some anomaly that goes off every once in a while.
100%, and you know that the government is much like an iceberg. We know the tip of what they're allowed to let us know. Yeah. It took them decades to talk about the SR-71, the high-altitude stealth reconnaissance vehicle, plane, right?
I imagine that, like,
there's something here.
A lot of the technology that we have is just like, years and years behind, like what...
reverse engineered, we know, Transformers.
No, I a lot of the technology I think that we do have is like years behind like what the government's capable of doing, right?
Which is spooky as hell.
Which is like really crazy and spooky, right? We have all these devices, like our phones, for example, are just insane with the whole, what they can do. And I'm sure the government has stuff like our phones that are smaller, more efficient and whatnot. Like, I truly believe that.
Yeah, think of how much earlier we could have had Velcro, all right? I didn't need to be tying my laces all through my childhood. I could be strapped up Velcro style. I say that because Velcro came from the government.
It did. Yeah. And it's just like the little things like that where you're just like, oh, okay. Like, who's to say, they didn't test, the HARP didn't accidentally do some type of thing.
Right.
Like would I put my eggs in that basket? Would I put stocks into it? No.
Sure. Would I put eggs in that basket? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I got 6 eggs. They're all in that basket.
No, but you're right. I mean, it's not very likely, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
It's just like how you're not going to prove it until they come forward and say declassified.
Right. If you took that, like the list of different theories and stuff like that, one, I think it's just something natural that's happening. Mm-hmm. But if you're like declassified, the government caused it by, some type of division that they had, like HARP, and this went down. I went, okay. I wouldn't sit there going, no, come on, really? I'd be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so far, there's no evidence of any unknown technology coming out of HARP, no weaponry coming out of HARP. But again, maybe in a couple decades, be declassified. By that point, we'll have whole new mysteries to bite into, and we won't be worried about sky trumpets. We'll be worried about, I don't know, disappearing faces or something. I don't know, man. I
Disappearing
can't come up with.
Oh no, my face to go missing.
But yeah, so that is the mystery of the sky trumpets. Deeply unsettling.
It
very
really
eerie.
is. Like seeing that video, I was like, "What the hell is this?" Obviously, my mind is instantly like, "Okay, it's the wind doing some weird things," but that is so weird to come across. That would throw me off so fast. If I was camping in a somewhat isolated trip with, just out there with my gear, and I heard something like that, I would contemplate going back to civilization. Like,
100%.
Like in that moment, going, this is really weird. Should I be like heading back to civilization to see if this is something that's happening?
Yeah.
Are governments attacking each other? Is global warming hitting hard right now? Like,
well, I mean, even if you're camping, you're out in the middle of the woods. There's one video that I saw that it just sounded like Bigfoot screaming. Right? So, like, if you're out there...
That's weird. I'd be terrified. My ass is definitely running back to my car.
Regardless of your belief in cryptids or not, I'm going, that's some sort of mountain lion, something real that could eat me.
Yeah.
I'm out.
I'm going to get jumped by Bigfoot for not believing that they exist, bro. It's all going to come back to me. It's like, we heard your podcast. You didn't believe it.
We're sophisticated and we do teleport around as a family. Yeah. So, yeah, that's Sky Trumpets. This next one is also kind of spooky. It can either be very scary if you were experiencing it, or it can be, depending on your belief, kind of pleasant. The will-o'-the-wisps are a paranormal phenomenon that exists across many cultures, most commonly described as a ghostly light with no apparent explanation, particularly over water or in marshes and swampy areas. You might have heard of these in many ghost stories. People in cemeteries tend to see these lights in a distance. I've seen many a ghost show, and they tend to be these, it almost looks like someone carrying a lantern in the distance. And so I think these tend to be the same phenomenon. But in Latin, it's referred to as ignis fatuus, which means foolish fire in Latin. Oh. This phenomenon is relatively simple. We're going to do most of our time being in the theories again on this one, but witnesses have said when they've seen this, that they move slowly above the water or through the trees, and whenever they are approached, these lights tend to move away from them, leading many people to think that they are being led somewhere. And of these witnesses, only a handful actually have reported that there's some sort of moisture coming off these lights, as if there's a physical presence to these lights, that they're not just ethereal, but there's something there tangibly. Norse legends claim these lights guarded treasures. Other legends say that these would guide people to treasure, while other legends, most legends, actually involve the will-o'-the-wisps leading people to some kind of trouble. So that's like a coin flip, whether you're going to get some treasure or some trouble.
All right, you saved the spookiest one for last. I see you. Set me up with the mushrooms.
I found a way to talk about ghosts. That's all I'm saying.
My mind instantly goes to the reflection of like the moon on a lake.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I'm going to try and make some type of rational thought behind this. And then in terms of like people feeling moisture. Okay, follow along.
I'm following.
With me here, okay?
I'm following at a distance, but I'm following.
Say like you're at home, the temperature's set perfectly. You're not too cold. You're not too hot.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm feeling it right now.
But you're sitting down.
Yeah,
you're perfectly fine, and depending on like what your emotion is, it could trigger your sweat glands or your body to type of kind of react.
So that's the moisture you're feeling?
Yeah. So
is it could be something bodily.
Right? Yeah. So it's something more bodily where like emotionally they're thinking some way. And
even if your adrenaline's going, if you have fear for seeing this thing, you're just like, there's a floating bright orb. Yeah. I feel like I'd get the chills.
Yeah. You get the chills, a little sweat. That's where my mind is going. You know what I'm saying? It's just your tummy hurts and you go, I'm just going to try and get past this because I'm enjoying watching this show, or I'm in the middle of a match or something like that.
Sure.
Then you just start sweating it up.
You start dripping. I think maybe the moisture has to do with the fact that these tend to be seen in the marshes, the swamps, some sort of body of water. Maybe it's just steamy out there.
But then why weren't they steamy before? I think it is like, emotionally it's triggering your body to start to sweat a little bit.
That plays, but now that I'm thinking about steam coming off this, you have fog settled over a lake.
Yeah.
Maybe that's catching some natural phenomena that's creating that light, or maybe
the moon reflecting off the lake.
Yeah. I guess if it's moving between trees, that's where it starts to become difficult to explain.
Okay, that's weird.
But if it's above the water, that's totally possible.
If it's like a light that's moving around, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Especially if you can approach it like it's a physical thing there in front of you.
I wouldn't say hello.
No way.
I wouldn't.
The thing is, it's in a lot of folklore. It's so popular that even Disney included it in Brave.
I know exactly the movie you're talking about, but I think that's one of the few Disney movies I have yet to see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the blue little orb floating about and she follows it. In the movie, they say it leads to your fate. In Bangladesh and West Bengal, they call these lights the Alea. They say that it either leads fishermen astray or it could lead them to safety. So again, you have that 50-50 split on if it's going to lead you to something good or lead you to something bad.
Would you follow it?
I don't know. I'd play it by ear. I think I'd follow it like step by step. But if it's taking me into an environment that I normally wouldn't want to be in, I'm not going to be there with it. I'm not going to say, yeah, let me step into this dark forest with you. I'd come up to the threshold and say, this is where I end.
What if
my
you're
journey
already
with
in
you.
said dark forest?
Then I ask, why am I here? I say, is Hagrid around? Why am I following the spiders? I got to get out of here. But yeah, I mean, like Argentina has folklore around it. They call it the luz mala, or the evil light. They attribute color to its meaning. And they say, if it's a white light, it represents a distressed soul in need of prayer. If it's red or appears red in any way, it's Satan tempting the onlooker. So I find that very interesting too, because they attribute meaning to the color of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're getting intricate with the details here. I thought it was just like one shade of light that's just like reflecting off, not moving. But if it's moving and
if it's reacting to your presence, then that's interesting.
If it's moving, reacting to your presence, ooh, boy, nothing good comes from that. Come on.
No. Nothing that is a question mark or unknown that reacts to your presence is worth pursuing, unless you are a scientist on the brink of a discovery and you are in very comfortable territory. Like I am holding an experiment. If you're just out and about, I'm Alfredo Diaz going about my day. Oh, what's that thing? Let me follow it.
No, there's no way.
Just like you don't take candy from strangers, you don't take lights from the planet Earth.
You don't take lights from the planet Earth.
Or whatever's causing it. One last thing I wanted to mention was the Marfa Lights in Marfa, Texas, way out west of where we are now. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Some people think that the Marfa Lights were also Will o' the Wisps kind of forming in that area.
Is it some kind of like event that happened over there?
We're actually talking about doing an episode on them at one point, but they're a recurring phenomenon in Texas, east of Marfa, Texas in the U.S. It's been attributed to ghosts, UFOs, or Will o' the Wisps. People will see the floating lights from across the fields and plains.
It's very flat out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, light bends, so who's to say it's not... Since it's so flat, you can see...
You think about mirages, maybe like
a
heat
mirage,
coming off the desert
curvature
floor.
of the earth with the light.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm just trying to make some sense of it in my mind.
No, I mean the phenomenon of ghost ships stems from ships that are way out on the horizon.
Yeah, because
of the way light reflects. I don't know the science behind it necessarily, but if you get a really good camera and zoom way in, you can see, it looks like the ship is feet off of the water just because of the way light is bending. And etc. And so maybe that's something that's happening here, whether it be car lights or what have you. But there are a lot of theories that attempt to explain this. One such theory is that this is from a bioluminescent organism.
Oh, man, yeah.
Lightning bugs, some forms of fungi. Now, it being such a bright light and it being hard to distinguish the shape of it and what it is. But it being physical, like a bug, could explain why maybe there's some sort of moisture coming off of it in some way.
Is there some type of environment where this is always happening in?
No, it seems like it happens just anywhere. It seems like a lot of cultures around the world.
Yeah, I would think maybe it's some undiscovered bug if you're, right? Because we talked about this before. There's a ton of different insects and creatures that are undiscovered in the Amazon. There's just hundreds of millions of different.
But that's because of how hard it is to reach spots. This is if you've got this rare bioluminescent thing. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's this, but it's interesting.
I wouldn't think it's. I don't see it.
It's also very bright. You're seeing it, a lot of people see these from far away. And so if it's bioluminescent, you don't tend to see that from a very great distance.
Yeah. I don't see myself putting my vote in that theory. It's just some type of undiscovered bug, and I don't know.
Or a floating mushroom.
That's popping up all over the planet. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's two more theories that are pretty interesting.
Okay.
But some theorize that the will-o'-the-wisps could actually be an example of ball lightning, which is a very rare phenomenon.
Like a Pikachu moveset, Paul?
Yeah.
Christian, why are you laughing, bro?
It's a very rare phenomenon, and honestly, I don't even know if it's substantial yet, ball lightning, but it's essentially small balls of lightning that last longer than normal lightning strikes, and they are usually seen after lightning strikes because that's why they're called ball lightning. It's essentially an orb of lightning. They have been reported to pass through windows and walls, and they have also been purported to have a smell like sulfur. But the problem with it is, I think they only exist in theory. I don't know if there's actual substantial video evidence of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look it up. There's people like you and I, like a show like this, that talks about them, but there isn't a lot of hardback scientific knowledge. I think CBS
Right.
uploaded a video of one, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I click it, and it's just lens flare. I debunked it. I'm like, those are not ball lightning. Those are just pieces of
Yeah.
lens flare from where the lightning struck, and it glowed for a second. So, but I don't know. Maybe I don't know much about ball lightning, but as far as my knowledge of it exists, is that it's just a unproven phenomenon.
But the thing is, even if that like is a phenomenon that happens, then every time there'd be this sighting, it would correlate with like a lightning storm, right?
Yeah, seems so.
Yeah. So otherwise, like, how would it be this ball of lightning?
Yeah.
So that's where that theory falls short for me.
In addition to that, though, too, I mean, if ball lightning only lasts for a few moments and moves very fast,
True.
these will-o'-the-wisps are said to move very slowly and can last upwards of hours.
I mean, if it lasts upwards of hours, I didn't know. I was thinking like minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hours? You have anyone go and investigate?
I mean, maybe they do. Maybe everyone that investigates gets
Yeah.
gobbled up and
Yeah.
disappeared. You know, what if it's some sort of like fourth dimensional being, like an anglerfish, luring us in with some, you know how the anglerfish has that little node?
Yep.
And they lure fish in?
The little light on.
And
the
we're just
dangles.
like, oh, I'm going to be the first person to figure this out. Sure, you might figure it out, but you're going to be gone. And then you
Dang.
get disappeared.
Yeah, could you imagine like that's how like some type of like
But
I don't know, weird
creeps me out.
creature being just like trying to lure people.
Maybe that's how Bigfoot eats. He throws out a glowing orb.
Everything comes back to Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's got to eat, and he has no evidence of existing. And he exists. But the leading theory is that this is caused by swamp gas created by decaying organic matter, which makes a whole lot of sense if you're near bodies of water, especially the swampland or the marshland. And this theory was first proposed by the inventor of the Volt battery, Alessandro Volta, back in 1776. So it's been around for quite some time. Volta hypothesized that the methane gas that comes from the marshes would be interacting with electricity and spontaneously combusting.
But for an hour's
For hours, though, it is a bit strange.
like that's a bit straight. Like the time, there's like certain things that just kind of are like hard debunks for me in terms of these theories, right? And then it could be mostly it's just the time frame,
Right.
Like again, I thought it was minutes. You're talking hours. This is going on for
Supposedly.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I don't know if
supposedly,
we have a documented one for
potentially
hours.
like that's
It could be like
wild.
10 minutes and someone's just so flabbergasted by this
Yeah.
thing that when they recount the story from 10 years ago, they're like, it was hours,
Yeah.
days.
It wow.
But
forever.
I think what's interesting about this particular theory is that modern scientists have built off of this idea
Yeah.
and said that, well, you know, perhaps this is the oxidation of things like phosphine, diphosphine, and methane, all created by organic decay in marshy areas. And this oxidation is essentially, the process scientifically is it losing an electron. But layman's terms is just these gases interacting with oxygen in the air.
Yeah.
And if there is some sort of energizing that's happening or some, I don't know, reaction, it could be these gases glowing in a way. Again, I don't know how long this process would last unless conditions were just right for this concentrated pocket to sit there and
Even
glow.
then,
but-
right? I mean, what you talked about is kind of where I'm going with this, like this concentrated pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was that, how do you explain it moving then?
So if you're in the trees, I can imagine the trees really dulling down the wind. And so if there's just a subtle current of air and this very concentrated pocket of phosphine or whatever.
Right. Then it looks like it's swaying around.
It looks like it's just kind of
what
floating.
What is the movement?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. That does make sense.
And then above the water, though, you think that would be swept away pretty cleanly. But it all depends. It all depends on the environment you're in. That's maybe why these are more rare, because it necessitates
such
this
perfect
gas
conditions.
meeting the oxygen and then not being swept away. Briefly, though, there are some other theories, one such as ghosts, right? There are ghost stories that sound very similar to this. Thereby, it makes a lot of sense to attribute these to the paranormal, that maybe this is just a ghost.
Spirit wandering.
Right. I have some information here that makes this sound even more outlandish, so I do want to talk about it. There are tales in Europe, and I guess even in the United States, and this is very wild, that someone named either Will or Jack, after committing some kind of crime, would be doomed to haunt the marshes. I don't know who started this, but it sounds like they had it out against a man named Will and or Jack. But then these ghosts would lure people to the swamps, so they would too get lost. And that since many of these legends surrounding the will-o'-wisps revolve around these kinds of wrongdoing or leading people to the wrong locations or things of that nature, there are stories consistent across the world that revolve around ghosts in environments like this, leading people astray. Whether it be people like Will and Jack doing some sort of criminal behavior, becoming a ghost and misleading people, or things like in Argentina where they just called them evil light and whatever the origin was. I don't know. I think there's something interesting there, that a lot of cultures have stories around these wisps.
Yeah.
And least common denominator there would be ghosts.
Please no.
Well,
you know what I mean? Just I'm okay.
Could you imagine? You're out in the swamps, in the bayou, just looking for gators, trying to hang out, enjoy Louisiana a little bit.
Sure.
And you see this light, and you're like, you know what? Let's turn the fan boat that way. Let's just see where this is headed. You follow it, you become lost, and then suddenly you become a wisp yourself, and you're just like, well, great. Now I'm just one of those fairies from Legend of Zelda floating about.
Yeah.
I'm trapped
Hey,
forever
listen.
in this swamp. Not a great existence.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't chase that down ever.
And then the last theory that's worth talking about, because it does, despite the sound of it, does have a lot of backing, is that this could be barn owls flying over swampy areas, or could be the moon reflecting off of it, or other source of light reflecting off of the barn owl, creating this illusion that there's a floating light. Now, that doesn't address the moisture potentially, and it doesn't really address people trying to follow it, but it does try to ground this phenomenon in reality with creatures that would otherwise be flying around these types of areas.
I mean, even, I don't know. I feel like if that's something that's happening, it would be in an instant.
Yeah.
Even if people were like, oh, these lights happen for 2 minutes, like to see the light reflect perfectly off of this owl for more than an instant seems a little weird to me.
I mean, I guess then I start to think about the eyes, and if a light can catch the eyes just right, just like a cat or even like a human at certain angles, right? You get red eye. But it's worth mentioning too, because maybe there's a deeper conspiracy here. Maybe barn owls are nefarious creatures in and of themselves, behind
I knew this guy was
behind the world's most evil doings. I can't help but notice that we've talked about the barn owls with the Jersey Devil and the Mothman. Yeah. Maybe they're just out here trolling us.
Yeah.
Maybe these are devil spawn
that
are out here taking down
ancient
good
tablets
people.
And scrolls, and you just realize, oh my God, there's an owl in every single one of them.
Oh my God, you are onto something.
Time.
I've seen some ancient hieroglyphics going back to the pyramids of Giza. I've seen birds.
Owls.
I'm finding it. I'm Googling it now.
There. They've always
owl
been
hieroglyphs.
There. Well, now you're just looking for owl hieroglyphs, specifically owl.
I'm gonna find you the picture. It exists.
We're talking about
look at this.
Yeah, I mean
is that a barn owl or is that a barn owl?
I mean that's specifically an owl for an owl.
I'm gonna look up a barn owl.
I'm talking about like
the ancient Egyptians were onto something.
A bunch.
Oh my God, it is. Oh my God, I've got a new theory for the world. Look at that, and look at that.
Wow.
Look at that. Barn owl. Now look at that.
Wow.
Hieroglyphic.
An owl.
Christian. Christian, for your eyes only. Christian, for your eyes only. Look at this. Take the details in on the face.
Yeah.
Take
now look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It looks like an owl. It's an owl.
It's an owl. Just out in the woods.
Look at the face.
Wow.
Don't laugh at me.
It's crazy.
I'm telling you, I'm onto something.
Dude, that's wild.
I am
Dude,
onto
you're
something.
onto it, man.
Hey,
you should chase that.
Get
theory.
these earthly mysteries.
You should chase it.
Take these out of my face. We don't need earthly mysteries anymore. We are on to something deeper. Task Force,
Dude,
this is
you're
the
on to
first call to
something.
action I've ever needed you on.
Yeah.
We are deep in the throes of
Yeah.
owlception.
I
Okay,
see
there is
commit-
a conspiracy to be
commit to
had
it.
here. Dang.
This guy's gonna come back with the powers of an owl.
I was bit by an owl on my
I
journeys.
followed the
I'm like,
follow the conspiracy.
you know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe I caught onto something real deep in the cabal of the owls. But we talked about lizard people. I'm thinking owls are behind it
Yeah.
all. Not these lizards. Not these cold-blooded entities.
Right.
Owls. And now that I'm onto something, they're starting to scramble my brains. I can't even think
Crazy.
straight, guys.
Yeah. No,
You
the
know what I mean?
frequencies.
Yeah, I
You're
see you both
doomed.
nodding. Yeah, you're both. Yep. There's a nod.
I love
And there's
doing
a
this
smile.
in person. I love it. This is awesome.
It brings a whole different energy. And us being in person for the first time is probably why this episode was so long. But hey, if that's what it has to be, that's what it is.
And that's what it is.
You know?
Yeah. No, this is definitely.
There's no going
a lot
back.
More fun in person.
We did a year's worth from
Yeah, we
quarantine, not seeing each other's
Started
faces.
in person, and now
Now
our
we'll-
first recording in person.
Now we'll end with owl
And
people.
boy, was it goopy.
Scoopy. Listen, when you get home, kick on your flops and socks.
I was gonna say we should take a picture of this fit here and throw it on the
Here
damn.
we go. I'm gonna take this right here. Yep.
This is wild. This man's drip is wild.
I'm gonna post that today. I think I can't even wait. I'm gonna tell the world that we recorded in person. But anyway, thank you all for listening. Appreciate you all. Subscribe to this podcast now. Here at the end of it, you must have listened to it. So I don't know. I'm already speaking to the captured audience, but subscribe wherever you listen to audio podcasts. But we also have YouTube now.
Yeah.
It is 2021. We've discovered the web. YouTube.com/redwebpod if you prefer to consume us there. And what else we got?
Big thanks to everyone that's been copping all the merch, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like we talk about it over and over again. It's still crazy.
We're
But
working on, I say this every week, and I think we just need to get a date now, but we have some cryptid pins designed.
Yep.
Ready to go. We just need to figure out when those are going to launch. Logistics
Well,
are still all over the place.
Well,
The
we
world
talked
is
about
chaos.
like potentially more pins. Then we talked about like having limited edition pins. But now we know that the designs are finalized. So.
Yeah. I think we need to do something with flops and socks. I really want to spread comfort to the world now.
Owls.
Well, maybe this is the owl's bane. They didn't know what they stepped into.
An owl with socks in flops.
Woo! Now we're on to
We
something.
need to end it.
Now we're on to something.
All right. We should go now.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. Tune in next week, every Monday. New Mystery Fredo. I'll see you right back in this very in-person room, tapping
you
on this
will.
table, flipping pages, showing you pictures in person next Monday.
In some flops. Goodbye, everyone.